Let's get back to the business. The South and West Chambers are pleased to present our podcast showcasing some of our most successful members. Let's get into the business. Welcome back, South Chamber family and friends, to the Business Podcast, hosted by the South San Antonio Chamber of Commerce. I am Al Arler Jr., President and CEO, and today we have our guest, Prakash Mammen of LA Crawfish. Ash, thanks for being here today.
For sure. Thank you for having me.
Hey, well, so getting to know you a little bit, you just started your business pretty recently, right?
We opened up at the end of May.
What's your title over there?
Owner.
You're the owner.
Yeah.
You're the one that's put it all out there.
Owner, cook, dishwasher, clean the dishes, whatever you need, man.
A true entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So I guess this is a concept I've seen in other places too. Is it a franchise, if you will?
Yeah, we're based out of Houston,
Okay.
and then we have 4 locations in San Antonio. Opened up the first one in Houston, I believe, 2013.
Okay.
And so they had, I think, 2 or 3 corporate locations, and they started franchising pretty quickly after that.
And when you caught notice of this business in Houston?
In Houston, yeah, I lived in Houston for about 2.5 years. I lived across the street from one of their corporate stores.
Okay.
Saw how popular they were. They always had lines. Tried the food, and I was very impressed. When I moved back home here, I noticed that there was a location off 281 that's actually closed now, but I was impressed, and I found out they're franchising. Hopped on as quick as I could.
Well, and so there's something to maybe what you saw is I used to live in Houston also, and the Louisiana culture is certainly a little more present there than maybe here. That crawfish, that kind of food is delivered there more. Not much here, huh?
Not as much. I mean, I grew up in San Antonio, and born and raised, and I'd never eaten crawfish before. Like in college, there was a lot of people from Houston that went to UTSA as well, and so I was exposed to the culture. But same thing, I was like, what is this like weird red thing? How do I even eat it? How do I cook it?
Same.
And then when I actually moved to Houston, you're really immersed in it. It's like backyard barbecue style.
Right.
If you're going out there in Houston, you're crawfish boiling on Saturdays.
Right,
and Sundays.
right. The way we smoke briskets, they're crawfish boiling.
That's exactly right. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Well, so a little bit about your product. You've been open how long?
Since the end of May.
At the end of May, and obviously that was an interesting time to
open.
and I know you obviously had to maybe stay on your toes what you were going to be allowed to do and how you were being allowed to do things. But how did y'all fare out? Okay.
We were okay. I mean, there were pretty loose guidelines from the city itself. Everybody was kind of just told to look to the CDC for guidelines.
Sure.
And so we did our best to go about that process. Luckily, we are a franchise store, so corporates, that's what you pay for that corporate support from that. And
Sure.
so same thing beyond the CDC guidelines. And I also have another franchise as well, so I kind of utilize both those different corporate support systems to kind of create our own system at our store. But for the most part, and this is kind of true for every restaurant, we're already held the kind of guidelines to help us. This is obviously a very important, different kind of danger, but. Right. The flu comes around every year. It's seasonal like that. And so our processes are already in place. We just strengthen them.
I think I catch what you're trying to say is your goal is always to keep your customers, your employees, everybody safe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, this was a different animal. So we had to put in, like I said, we just strengthened our existing system and cleaning processes. And so instead of doing something that we would maybe do every 30 minutes to, clean a table like that, it was like, okay, every single time a customer touches anything, sanitize that. So it brought really good practices into place that I'm happy about. I mean, it makes me feel more comfortable, and I think it helps customers feel more comfortable also.
Gotcha. So I'm curious, getting to know you. So you've always been interested in the restaurant industry? You've always dabbled in it? Or?
So I've always loved food. I'm always been a chubby guy, and so I stand by the thought that food kind of brings everybody together, regardless of race and culture.
Sure.
And I mean, people don't have to speak the same language, but you can put a plate of food in front of them, and if they like it, they're like, "Hey, man, we both like the same thing. Like, delicious food is delicious food."
That's
kind of universal, exactly.
Right.
So I've always had that passion for food, and I kind of, as you get older, you're like, all right, what am I going to do? Like, what's going to wake me up out of bed, and I'll be happy to do it. And food is a thing, and so I was like, if I can monetize it, make a little money doing it, that's what it's all about.
What took you to Houston?
I went there for my finance career, actually. So I left my parents' business, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to put my degree to use, and I'm going to say, I can do it on my own, Dad. And then I went and did it, and I was like, this sucks.
I don't like this. I don't like this.
Yeah, I was like, it's terrible. You work 60, 70-hour weeks, and at the end of the year, you get a really small bonus or whatever.
Right.
CEO is getting a new jet, and you're just like, you know what, man? I'm like, let's not do this anymore. I'd rather work hard and make my own family money and see to my community and things like that.
Right. So you mentioned another business. So this is your second?
This is my second one. So I also own a Golden Chick franchise over on the north side.
Okay.
And so I just, like I said, I love food. And we all try to keep it. Like my dad always told me, like, buy stuff that you like.
Sure.
Stuff that you're familiar with. And we love fried chicken. So it's like fried chicken. And like I said, I love the Cajun flavor. So kind of a no-brainer to get that one too.
Sure. And I'm going to say thank you for bringing Crawfish to Southside. You know, usually the fanfare down here is it's kind of typical, and so sometimes there's this expectation that the market can't hold maybe something like you.
Absolutely.
You obviously had the confidence that it can, huh?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, born and raised in San Antonio, you really got to trust your roots and trust your research. And I saw how it was performing off Calabria. And, you know, the demographics are pretty similar to that area. Sure. And so it's kind of a no-brainer. You're like, all right, what does this area need? What do they already have? Right. And you see, you know, there's obviously a lot of like taco joints and a lot of burger places and things like that, and American style and stuff like that. So you're like, all right, well, if it's doing well over there, and this is the population is pretty much the same on this side of town, it should be it's no brainer. Like I said, so
that's great. That's great. Well, it's funny you mentioned too, because like I mentioned, when I went to Houston, it was how do you eat this? How do you do this? I mean, do you want to give any kind of, for those who have never tried it, any kind of comparison or similarities so that they can say, oh, okay, maybe I'm a little curious.
I mean, like if you like the taste of seafood in general, you're gonna like and seafood with a lot of punch and flavor of that Cajun and cayenne and stuff like that. Because it's definitely not like if you're like a light flavor kind of person, you're like, I just like to taste like food, like just the meat and the essence of it. Right. I'd say kind of like, cause I tell people like, hey, everything here is spicy. If you don't like spice,
it's not just butter.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and we can serve it plain. Sure. But like even then, our even the water that we're boiling in it is like heavily spiced and salted and stuff like that. So it's like a real like punch to your gut, and like that's my preferred way to eat food. Like if it's not like super intense, I'm like, oh man, it's like kind of lackluster feeling.
Sure.
So
well, and I'm assuming on portion sizes that maybe folks have this assumption, because if you do know of crawfish, you typically know it's a gathering kind of dish. What do serving sizes look like?
So we do ours by the pound. So it's kind of it's everything's a la carte. So exactly how you like it, how much you want it, with the spice, the seasonings, your sides and stuff like that. Yeah. And so, but it is like you said, you referenced the family style. That is the essence of it. And that's that's one thing I really loved about it, is that it's a food that's not very pricey, but it's kind of like it brings people together. And so like you see the crawfish boil pictures and all the videos where they have the pot and they throw it all over the table, and you're like, oh man, it's like a picturesque kind of thing. We don't have the pots because they're in the back obviously, but we serve it in a bag and you get a bowl and stuff like that, so you can still get that feeling. Sure. But we want you to throw it all over the table, make a mess, eat with your hands and stuff like that. And I'm big on that. So that's
well, that's the way you eat it, right? You're not supposed to put it on.
Don't get a knife and fork and that kind of stuff. Like people, I mean, we have utensils, but it's kind of odd because we don't normally give it out with our food. Sure. We started to now with some things, but it's not. We prefer people to ask, or pre-pandemic we had them out there and stuff.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask you. Pre-pandemic, how does it get served at the table?
So before that, I mean, we've always been counter service. So we'll have people deliver the food to your table, but we had like a condiment bar with like everything you need. So it's kind of easier for us because people don't have to ask for it. But now they have to come up and ask for it. We have to get all stuff like that. Right. So.
Okay. Well, you said May pandemic still holding water. Yeah. You picked the South Side specifically, obviously. Can you describe your confidence in that, or?
Well, so initially I was actually going to build over off of 35 and 1604, so over by the IKEA. Okay. And just because the IKEA was coming through, and so we were like, oh man, if it's going to be like Round Rock, that's a good location.
And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of activity happening
there. Yeah. And it was one of those where it's kind of like, it just happened to where my brother just had a baby, and he's my real estate agent. And so, like, literally, he was just like, "Yeah, I'm looking at suites, I'm looking at spots and stuff like that." And I was like, "All right, well, where are they?" And I was like, "I know he just had a baby, so try not to be this one." I was like, "Hurry up, man!" I was like, "We gotta get this on the road." I'm pretty impatient.
Do you have a nephew or niece now?
I have a niece now. Okay. So she came out, she's great and healthy. I'm really happy for her. But I was just like, "Hey, man, so family aside, get it together."
You can remind your niece later on about this, right? Exactly. She came first.
Yeah, no. Like I said, it turned out to be a blessing in disguise because that area. It's not performing as people thought it was, and it's great, but the traffic flow kind of changed, so like parts of that area that were really good aren't anymore because IKEA kind of shifted the traffic.
I'm gonna go ahead and take an opportunity to say yes. Thank you for noticing that. As excited as we can get about these new flagships that can create economic activity, you can see that they were planning around that, right? Yep. And creating this new center area that they've zero-scaped out, but there's still nothing.
There's still nothing out there. Yeah, and it's very expensive.
And in here where you built, it was kind of quick and fast. The way the lease was built out and everything ready for you to go, huh?
It was like I said, the owner of the property, GFR, it's a great company, and then they came in ready, and they developed most of this area anyway, so they're familiar with it. So that when I knew that they had the confidence to put another pretty large center, I mean that's there's at least 5-6 buildings out there, and
so quick, man.
Really quickly, and quality. And like I said, the landlord's wonderful. I love them out there. And so, it was a pretty easy process going through. Once you did the research, I actually looked at this area and kind of did a deep dive. Yeah. I was like, there's an insane amount of people out here that just they want to eat.
It's pent up. It's a pent up marketplace.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The traffic counts are compared to I-10 de Zavala right here on 37 and Military. Well, we are neighbors. Obviously, you're here on Brooks, and so are we. Any other neighbors that you've become chummy with that you've gotten to know?
Not so. I've met the new owners of Deco Pizza.
Okay.
They're coming up. Like I said, they had their other location going through some stuff with the pandemic and all that. So they're supposed to open up I think October, but they're kind of going through some stuff. But they're on the way. I've been checking in. They have a nice little patio out there. It's gonna have a nice bar, so that's gonna be cool. And Mr. C's Fried Chicken was supposed to pop up next to us, but I think they're gonna switch to something else. I can't remember what it is now. So
did you have a golden chicken?
Yeah.
Oh, there's one already right down here.
There's
right?
one across the street.
I was going to say, maybe you could come back in the market.
And they're doing great, too.
They do really well, too, yes. Well, I'm certainly curious about yourself. With whatever personal information you care to share.
Sure.
You mentioned growing up in San Antonio. You know how that typical question is, what area of town
did you go? What high school did you go to?
What high school did you go? I didn't want to ask that typical question, but like I'm saying, with you now doing business on the South Side, certainly this is obviously a place that is coming to have an affection to your heart. Absolutely. What are you noticing in the area that you're liking, that you enjoy? Or?
I mean, it's just the growth. I mean, when you see a transformation of a place in front of your eyes, it's beautiful. As a business owner, you're seeing this stuff happen in real time, and so rapidly that it's to me, like I said, to watch that and be a part of that, I'm really humbled by it, and I'm thankful for it. And so that's been a wonderful thing just to watch.
It's been exciting, man. Yeah. So I've been here office with the chamber for 7 years here, and it's just been exceptional. The growth, the apartment complexes, things like you're where you are, it grew overnight almost. And so there's a lot more happening and more to come.
Definitely,
obviously. Now, is there anything you want to share that you got going on for the holidays, like any kind of specials or anything?
So we were about to drop some combo packs. So that's one thing I was mentioning. We're mostly a la carte, and it kind of throws people off because they're used to kind of like they come in like, hey, do you guys have a boil? It's kind of a little bit of everything. Yeah. It's not really our style, but we're like, you know what? All right, that's what people want. Like, give them what they want.
Sure.
So we are testing some at Calabria right now, and then I think I'll be one of the test stores also. But basically, it's kind of like a little bit of everything. Like you'll get crawfish, you'll get shrimp, you'll get your side, all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of a really budget-friendly thing. So if you're eating for two, I think the other one is about for like 3 to 4 hungry people. They're priced really, really well, and I think they'll do pretty awesome. And then we also have a low-key promo, which I'm still in discussions with a local barbecue place around here.
Okay.
Hey, so hopefully we can get that on the ground and going for January. I'm trying to shoot for January.
That's great.
And so that if we get it all through and get it put together, I think that'll be a really successful promotion for both of us.
That's great. Well, that's different.
Yeah. In any kind of partnership with food, you try to just kind of pair up with someone like obviously.
That's not doing the same thing.
Yeah, it's like, hey man, we're not going to feed. Probably like we're not going to partner with them, but I think that they're a little bit more. Smaller, we're a volume store, and so like it's nice to combine both of our reaches and our customer audiences, and I think that we can both strengthen each other and hopefully help each other out and bring some really good food over here.
Well, and getting more into you personally, you mentioned your folks were in business, huh? Mm-hmm. And so I guess that's been something genetic or
absolutely,
inherent.
yeah. I mean, like I said, we my dad's side at least, we've all been businessmen since I think about 4 or 5 generations.
Oh my God!
Spanning back to India, it's always kind of like, all right, what do your parents do? It's like, oh, business guy. Like, all right, you're a business guy too. So I grew up in business watching my dad since I was a kid, since I was 4 or 5 years old, just doing knickknacks, it's like trying to help out.
So he taught you whether he realized it or not, huh?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Or probably realized.
It was more of a child labor thing, but I didn't realize until I got older. I was like, I never got paid for any of this. Like, I was like working at like 5 years old.
You saved the consumer that much more money,
exactly,
right?
Exactly.
So what else can you tell me about, especially where I'm curious, it's not an easy proposition for anybody to start a business.
Sure.
And then even more so to look into franchising, the costs associated, saving up your money, so to speak, to get that done. How you were confident? You knew it, or
I mean, you really just you got to do your research. It's anything. I mean,
so it's data driven, your decision.
Absolutely. I mean, there is a certain amount of gut feeling. You kind of just got to, especially. I mean, like I said, I opened up in the middle of at the end of May, like pretty much at the middle of the pandemic, and so it's kind of just like roll the dice. But when you have faith in your numbers and you really know them, and you're kind of just like, all right, well, I can just sit here and just wait. And we were also facing like crawfish season. I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna have to open up eventually this year. Might as well do it while I can capitalize on a little bit of crawfish season, because otherwise I'm just losing. I mean, like I said, we're out of season right now. Okay. It's pretty slow, but it's normal. But being out of season doesn't mean you don't have supply. We do come in with some pre-cooked stuff. So,
Okay.
But, like I said, but they're not coming in live right now.
At that point.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Okay, but I mean, that's still, you're still keeping the
I mean, like I said, the
coming.
people still come. I mean, you still want that flavor, you want that deliciousness. We still got it. So
Yeah, that's great. Well, I guess, let me see. I've only come to know crawfish so much. The entire, I guess, that specific industry, the Cajun influence industry. Are there any peers in the marketplace that you're aware of that you could speak to?
As far as competition,
Yeah.
so they're smashing crab.
I mean, you don't have to talk about it.
I mean, there's a couple. I don't think there's any. Like I said, I think that they're mostly just smaller mom and pop shops, which are great. You know,
That's
like I
great,
said, I love those kind of places because they're gonna have those specialty dishes that aren't gonna be like anybody else's, and that's why I'm like, hey, they're technically competition, but I'll still go by and try their they got some really good fried rice with like that little kick of something.
Gotcha.
Love it. You know, that's awesome.
Gotcha. Well, Ash, let me see. Speaking about your folks, I'm sure that they obviously have had a lot to do with helping make who you are. Are there any other people you want to give some love to, so a shout out to?
I mean, I've had tons of people always support me. I mean, a lot of my teachers were always there for me. They saw that I was kind of a little bit of a troublemaker, but I wasn't like, you know, I wasn't necessarily getting in trouble because I was trying to be bad. I was just like kind of bored and kind of, you know, most business guys don't fit into the mold.
Sure.
And so they're just like kind of those rebels. So it's kind of like they were like, hey, you know, just graduate and get your school done, and then you can do whatever you want. You know, like I said, I'm not. I wouldn't say like, you know, an ADD kind of kid or something, you know, things like that. But I operate differently, and so having those kind of support systems from my teachers really helped a lot.
That's great.
My older brother's always been for me as well, and like I said, mostly like.
Is he a businessman too?
He is. He owns a daycare franchise also.
Okay.
And so.
Is that here in San Antonio?
It is.
You can shout him out then.
Sure. There's a kiddie academy out in Canyon Springs. So
I'm
if you have
familiar,
any parents out there, it's a fantastic school.
That's great. Any other siblings?
Just us.
Okay.
Yeah.
One in daycare, one in the restaurant industry.
Yep.
Any other folks you want to give some love to?
No, I believe that's it, man. Like I said.
Well, I'll tell you this much. I want to thank you. I especially appreciate you that you've been a chamber member, that you saw value, obviously, in the midst of a pandemic. We certainly have been trying our best to make sure to keep reminding folks to stay safe, show love, and shop south. At the beginning of the campaign, the pandemic, I think and I'm sure you, like you mentioned, we had a sense that we still had the responsibility to deliver a service that was safe, and at the same time I believe those that were kind of telling us what to do and not to do had a responsibility to realize how things were being how we were being affected by such decisions. And
definitely.
So, you know, in the year to come, I know you're going to be a powerful voice for small businesses to help us get back, all of us, you know, in the right direction. Do you have any thoughts going into the next year of you know, hopes, expectations, some opportunities? I
mean, you just got to stay the course. And like I said, if there are plenty of resources out there, and if you're not comfortable, I mean, you can reach out to people like yourself or local business owners. I mean, if you see a restaurant that's doing well and you're like, man, what are they doing right? I mean, I would have absolutely no problem. It's like, hey, what are your procedures? I'd love to share those kind of things.
Right.
Reach out to those people, or if I don't know, I'll point you in the right direction. The city has a lot of good resources, and just stay the course. I mean, these are tough times, but the people who come out of tough times like this come out much stronger every single time. So.
Right, and I think that's what I've seen too. Folks were obviously speculating that maybe the South Side would be that much more affected by the pandemic because we haven't had it easy. I mean, on this side of town, it's been a challenge to get us to where we were steadily growing. The pandemic happens, and we kind of. I've been telling folks, we never cratered. It just kind of flatlined.
Exactly.
Like we kind of just held water. But I think the year to come is going to be exciting.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm ready to help and promote, and
absolutely.
I'm sure you're going to think of some clever promotions for once people can gather again.
Yeah,
you know, like
I've been actually one of them. I want to do a crawfish eating contest, but I figured, you know, if I do like an all you can eat, I might lose all my money. So I was like, I have friends that can eat like 50 pounds, and I was like, you know what, maybe not that one. So I was thinking, my idea is to probably do like a crawfish pound eating, like get 1 pound. Eat as fast as you can.
There you go, and that's efficient for your bottom line.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's like only 1 pound, guys. Yeah, so
efficient on time and efficient for your bottom
and
line.
And maybe make it like super hot or something. Like we had a bunch of cayenne in there, but something like that. I'm thinking probably springtime when everything's a little bit more open, when vaccine comes out, something like that.
Well, and you know what, I'm gonna have to chime in on this because I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, there was folks that said, "Well, this is going to create a new normal." I don't believe that at all. I think we're all anxious and ready to just gather and hug and eat.
Absolutely, no question.
Make a mess together.
I think so. I think so. And like I said, there's positive vaccine news coming out like every day,
right?
Things like that. But I think that like I said, I mean, I hope that one thing I do hope that this as creative people are just more conscious.
Right.
You know, hey man, like you should be washing your hands pretty often. Like,
yeah, you
like
should.
that's I want you to wash your hands as much as possible. That's always
Right.
a good thing. Like I said, and that's one of those things in the restaurant industry. Like you're constantly washing your hands. Like if you don't have dry hands, I'm concerned. Like I'm kind of mad at you. Like
Right,
one of my
right.
employees, I'm like, why are your hands so moisturized?
Right. And, you know, again, I feel the need to even comment on this. Like you said it best, I think, was you've always felt the obligation to keep folks safe. That's the name of the game.
It is. It is.
If anybody getting sick, whether it's food poisoning, anything like that, it's just not.
That is not good for
that's
business.
Not good for
That's
business.
not good for business at all.
Yeah.
Nobody wants that. You know,
No.
that's a black stain on you.
Right, right.
And so like that's why when people were like, "Oh, are you nervous?" I was like, "Not really." I mean, like I did a lot of research. I dove into it. I went to read everything the CDC had, and then it's kind of like, all right, well, let's modify our game plan and strengthen it.
Right.
That's all it was for us. And that's why I was never worried about the restaurant industry as far as that. But as far as other industries that needed that had to put more strengthening policies that didn't have,
Right.
kind of worried about them. But the
Right.
restaurant industry in general, hospitality industry in general, we're used to this kind of stuff.
Well, and you probably know this too. I think hopefully the economic activity in our backyard will sustain itself. But I hope folks are coming back. There's still it's out there right now that we might be bringing in the NCAA tournament, the women's.
I heard that. Yeah, that's great.
2021. I can see that maybe being the beginning of a big floodgate of folks starting to come back. So, you know, let's hope for the best in 2021.
Let's bring it.
Again, yeah, let's
we're
bring
ready.
it. You're ready.
Absolutely,
we're ready to party next year.
Cool.
Be looking out for that, chamber members, family, friends. We're going to continue to help promote these small businesses as we continue to get folks back together. I'm looking forward to just getting a whole bunch of crawfish from your place, inviting all my family and friends, and just like I said, making a mess.
Getting down and getting dirty. I love it, brother. Appreciate that.
All right, sir. So I want to thank Ash. Thank you so much again for being a member, for doing business on the South Side. I want to thank our audience out there for joining us for today's episode. You've been given the business from the South San Antonio Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, guys.